My name is Karen Levette, and I'm 29 years old. On paper, my life looks pretty stable. I work in construction management, I'm good at what I do, and 3 years ago, I bought a 3-bedroom house that I am stubbornly, almost childishly proud of. It's not some sprawling mansion. No marble countertops or infinity pool, but every nail and every coat of paint feels like a receipt for years of sacrifice. I spent my early 20s in a shoebox studio where I could stand in the center, stretch out my arms, and practically touch both walls. Cheap instant noodles, bulk rice, and whatever was on sale in the frozen aisle kept me going while I worked long days on job sites and longer nights studying contracts and building codes. All of that turned into this house, my house. I still remember signing the mortgage papers with shaking hands, and then 2 years later making that final payment earlier than anyone thought I could. The deed is in my name alone. The guest room? I framed those walls myself. I hung the drywall, sanded, painted, installed the trim, picked out the bed and lamps. I even crawled around in the attic to run wiring for the recessed lights. When I say I built it, I mean it literally. This place became my sanctuary, a quiet space that smelled like sawdust, fresh paint, and freedom. Then I met Caleb. Caleb is 27, a graphic designer, the artsy, soft-voiced kind of guy who knows every font by name and gets personally offended by bad kerning. Where my day is hard hats and steel-toed boots, his is color palettes and brand decks. He has this easy charm, messy dark hair that somehow always looks intentional, forearms covered in tasteful tattoos, and the kind of laugh that makes people warm to him immediately. For 2 years, things were good. He had his apartment across town, I had my house, and weekends were our shared little world. We did the usual couple stuff. Movies, hiking, trying new restaurants, spending lazy Sundays in bed. I genuinely believed we were building something real. Then his lease was up. One night, he showed up with takeout and that carefully casual tone people use when they've rehearsed a speech in their head. "So," he said, between bites of pad thai, "my lease is ending next month, and I was thinking, we're basically living together already. Why not make it official and move in here, with you?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't care about him, but because this house is the first thing in my adult life that is 100% mine. My name on the deed, my sweat in the walls. He saw the hesitation and leaned in, eyes soft. "Karen, I love you. We'd save money. We'd wake up together every day. We could make this place our home, our space." He said "our" a lot. I wanted to believe it. I wanted the shared groceries, the joint coffee maker, the stupid domestic rituals. So eventually, I pushed down the knot of anxiety in my chest and said yes. I thought I was saying yes to a future. Turned out I was saying yes to a slow invasion. The first few months were fine. He moved in his clothes, his computer, a frankly unreasonable number of houseplants. He contributed to groceries and utilities. He washed dishes without being asked, bragged about me to his friends, "My girlfriend owns a house," and told me how proud he was that I'd done it on my own. We found a rhythm. Shared breakfasts, late-night design rants from him, construction horror stories from me. I started to relax, to think, okay, this can work. Then, around month 4, things started shifting. It was subtle at first. I'd come home and the living room would be rearranged. "I moved the couch," he'd say, gesturing proudly. "The flow is so much better now, don't you think?" My favorite old chipped mug, the one I'd had since college, disappeared. "Oh, that ugly thing," he said when I asked. "I tossed it. You deserve nicer stuff." He invited people over without checking with me. I'd walk in sweaty and exhausted from work to find 2 strangers sitting at my kitchen island with open bottles of wine. "Babe, this is Molly and Chris from the agency," he'd say, like I should be delighted. "We're doing a little creative jam." Annoying, sure, but I told myself it wasn't worth picking a fight over furniture and mugs. I picked my battles, until he started picking mine. That's when he shifted his focus to my friends. "They're kind of loud, don't you think? They stay too late. Do they have to drink that much?" These were people who had been with me for years. The ones who helped me paint these walls at 2 in the morning. The ones who showed up on moving day with trucks and pizza. The ones who sat cross-legged on this living room floor and toasted when I made my final mortgage payment. But over time, whenever they came over, Caleb's body language would change. Tight shoulders, deep sighs, the kind of exaggerated cleanup afterward that's more performance than necessity. We finally had it out one night after my friends left. You know this is my house, I said, keeping my voice steady. They've been here longer than you. If you've got a problem, use your words. Don't just sulk in the bedroom like a teenager. He backed off, or at least he pretended to. Instead of open arguments, he shifted to passive aggression, doors closing just a little too hard, music turned up in the bedroom whenever my friends came over, little digs dropped in conversations afterward. It's fine. I just like things quieter, but whatever makes you happy. Red flags, all of them. I saw them, and then I folded them up and stuffed them in a mental drawer labeled, "He's just adjusting. It'll get better." Then came the text, the one that set everything on fire. I was on a job site downtown, the air full of dust and the whine of power tools, when my phone buzzed. "Caleb, Tessa's coming to visit next weekend. Just wanted to give you a heads up." Tessa, his best friend from college. The legendary Tessa, who occupied this strange, untouchable corner of his life. I'd heard her name in stories, wild nights, road trips, inside jokes that I could never quite access. I'd seen her name pop up on his phone, followed by his little half smile as he typed back. Every time I asked more about her, he'd say the same thing. "She's like a sister to me, Karen. Don't be weird." "Sister? Sure." I wiped sweat from my forehead with the inside of my wrist and replied, "Me, okay, where is she staying?" The response came back immediately, like he'd already decided for both of us. "Caleb, with us obviously, LOL, she's only here a few days." With us. Not, "Is that okay?" Not, "Could we?" Just a statement, like he was informing me that it might rain. Something in me went very, very still. "Me, you should have asked me first. This is my place, not a hotel." 3 little dots. Then, "Caleb, oh my God. Karen, don't be dramatic. She's my best friend. It's just a few days. You won't even notice she's here." The irony of him calling me dramatic while he was inviting another woman to stay in my house without permission was almost funny. Almost. I stared at the message until the sight noise faded into a dull hum. My stomach twisted, but I shoved my phone back into my pocket. I didn't have time to argue in paragraphs. I had inspections to pass. But that text sat under my skin all day like a splinter. By the time I drove home, my anger had cooled into something tighter. Not a scream, not even a simmer, just a cold, clear line in the sand. Caleb was sprawled on the couch when I walked in, scrolling through his phone, probably texting Tessa about how controlling I was. "Hey," he said, glancing up. "How was your day?" "We need to talk about Tessa," I replied. His shoulders slumped dramatically, like I'd just asked him to donate a kidney. "Oh my God, you're still on that?" "I'm on the part where you invited someone to stay in my house without asking me," I said. "You want your friend to visit?" "Fine. But this is not a community center. You don't get to sign people up for sleepovers in my guest room without my consent." He rolled his eyes. Actually rolled his eyes. "You're being controlling, Karen. She's not some random stranger. She's like family to me." "That's not the point." I could hear the edge creeping into my voice. "The point is respect. The point is that you don't make unilateral decisions about who sleeps under the roof I pay for." He crossed his arms, jaw tightening. "Fine, whatever. She's still coming. If it's such a big deal, you can sleep on the couch." For a second, I honestly thought I misheard him. "I'm sorry, what?" "Tessa can take the guest room," he said slowly, like he was explaining something reasonable to a child. "You can sleep on the couch. It's only a few nights. You'll live." Let me paint this for you. I started as a grunt on job sites at 18. I lugged materials, swept debris, did all the backbreaking stuff no one else wanted. I worked my way up, saved every spare cent, gave up vacations, nights out, new clothes, all so I could buy this house. I built that guest room with my own hands. The recessed lighting, I cut those holes. The shelves, I installed them. Every inch of that room is a monument to me refusing to give up on myself. And this man, who pays for maybe a third of the monthly expenses and 0 of the mortgage, just told me I could sleep on my own couch so his best friend could be comfortable in the room I built. I laughed. It came out sharp and humorless, like glass breaking. "You're joking," I said. "I'm serious," he replied, completely unfazed. "She's flying across the country. I want her to feel welcome." "And what about me?" I asked softly. "Do I not qualify as someone who should feel welcome in my own house?" He waved his hand like I was being ridiculous. "It's just a couch, Karen. Stop being so dramatic. It's not like I'm asking you to sleep outside." That was the moment something clicked into place. "You know what that tells me?" I asked, standing up. "It tells me you don't see this as my house. You see it as our house, which it isn't." Not legally, not financially. You're a guest here too, Caleb. A guest who is dangerously close to wearing out his welcome. His face flushed bright red. Oh, so now I'm just a guest? After 8 months of living here, paying bills, cooking, cleaning. You cook maybe twice a week, I cut in. You clean up after yourself when you feel like it. And you pay a fraction of what it actually costs to run this place. Don't rewrite history. He opened his mouth, then closed it, at a loss for once. And that's when I finally saw it. This wasn't really about Tessa. This was a test. He'd been nudging my boundaries for months, seeing how much he could rearrange, discard, invite, control, before I pushed back. I'd let him go too far, but I wasn't going any further. You know what? I said, my voice suddenly calm. Tessa can visit, but if she does, you two can figure out somewhere else to stay. Hotel, her place, I don't care. She's not staying here, and if you keep pushing this, neither are you. His eyes widened. You're seriously doing this? Over my best friend? Over you making me a guest in my own house, I replied. This is the line, Caleb. You found it. For the first time since he moved in, I was done negotiating my own dignity. By the time the weekend rolled around, I had stopped hoping for an apology. Caleb didn't mention the argument again, didn't revisit the topic, didn't retreat, didn't correct course. He simply acted as if everything he'd said, every boundary he'd stomped on, every disrespectful word had never happened. And that told me everything I needed to know. Friday came, and with it, a version of Caleb I hadn't seen in months. He smelled like fresh cologne, wore a pressed button-up shirt, styled his hair neatly. He kept checking the mirror in the hallway, adjusting the collar, brushing invisible dust from his sleeves. Not once in the last 8 months had he dressed up like that for me. I stood at the kitchen island, still wearing my dusty job site clothes, filling a water bottle. He grabbed his keys. Where are you going? I asked, though I already knew. To pick up Tessa, he said without looking at me. Her flight lands soon. I let the silence hang. He finally turned, impatience already tightening his jaw. I thought we agreed she wasn't staying here, I said. You said she wasn't staying here, he corrected. I never agreed to that. There it was, the contradiction he'd been holding in his pocket like ammunition. Caleb, I warned. If you bring her to this house, he cut me off with a smirk. Relax. I already explained everything to her. She said you're being dramatic, but she booked a hotel if it makes you feel any better. He didn't wait for a response. He didn't ask how I felt. He just left, slamming the door with the satisfaction of someone who thought he'd won. If he wanted me to chase after him, he'd be waiting forever. Saturday morning, he was up early, earlier than I'd seen him in weeks. He brewed coffee, played upbeat music. He clattered around the kitchen, chopping, sautéing, rearranging. By noon, the truth hit me. He wasn't just cleaning. He was cooking. From scratch. Fresh herbs lined the counter, 2 pans sizzled. He used the good olive oil. He pulled out the cloth napkins I only used for holidays. He set the dining table like we were hosting a Michelin critic. Candles, wine glasses, careful symmetry. Not a simple dinner. A show. All for Tessa. Not once had he put this much effort into cooking for me. I stayed out of his way, worked on my truck in the garage, pretended not to hear the bright, excited tone in his voice as he hummed along to music. By 6, the doorbell rang. I heard him practically sprint to answer it. Tess, his voice lifted an octave, bright, thrilled. I stayed in the garage a moment longer, letting the irritation settle into something quieter and heavier. When I finally walked inside, wiping my hands on clean jeans, I saw her. Tessa. Tall, perfectly put together. The expensive kind of beautiful. The kind that comes from good lighting, confidence, and a closet that has never known clearance sales. She wore leather boots, a chic coat, hair styled in waves that looked done by a professional. Caleb looked radiant next to her. If I didn't know better, I would have thought they were the couple. He glanced at me like I was a work obligation he'd forgotten. Oh, Karen, he said. This is Tessa. She gave me a small, assessing smile. Nice to finally meet you. Caleb talks about you a lot. Her tone implied, let's see if the reality matches the complaint list. Nice to meet you, I said, shaking her hand. Her grip was soft, her eyes were sharp. Dinner felt like being trapped in a play where I wasn't part of the cast. They talked, laughed, finished each other's sentences, told old stories, inside jokes, college memories I couldn't contribute to. Tess, remember Cabo? Oh my God, yes, when we tried surfing. And you kept wiping out, every 10 seconds? I was black and blue for days. I set my fork down slowly. When was this? I asked. Caleb shrugged. Senior year. Just a group trip. How many people? I asked. Tessa tilted her head. 6? 7? How many were couples? The air shifted sharply. Oh my God, Karen, Caleb said. It wasn't like that. I nodded. Right. Just a friendly little tropical vacation. Completely innocent. Tessa's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in interest, like she'd found the bruise and wanted to press it. You seem tense, she said lightly. Caleb chuckled nervously. She's had a long week. But I wasn't tense. I was learning something important. Caleb didn't treat me like his partner. He treated me like a placeholder, and Tessa was the person he performed for. At one point, Tessa let out a wistful sigh. God, I miss traveling. We should do another trip like that. Caleb brightened instantly. Yes, we should. Maybe Costa Rica. I set my fork down again. Sorry, who's we exactly? They turned to me, slightly annoyed at the interruption. Me and Tessa, Caleb said. Obviously. Obviously, I repeated. Super appropriate for someone in a relationship. Tessa raised an eyebrow. We're friends. And I'm sure Caleb would be fine if I went on a beach vacation with a male friend, I said. Tessa froze. Caleb's face drained of color. That's different, he snapped. How? I asked. It just is, he said, voice cracking with irritation. Weak answer from a weak man. That was the moment it all unraveled. Tessa looked at me with a tiny, triumphant smirk. Caleb looked at her like she hung the moon, and I saw everything clearly for the first time. He belonged to her world, not mine. When he muttered, "You're being insecure," something in me snapped cleanly. Insecure? I echoed. Let's go over what I'm reacting to. Caleb groaned. Karen. No, I said sharply. Listen. I lifted one finger. 1. You invited another woman to stay in my house without asking. Another. 2. You told me to sleep on my own couch so she could have the guest room I built. Another. 3. You planned a whole reunion dinner like this is your show. Another. 4. You spent the entire evening reminiscing and flirting with your best friend while ignoring the person you live with. His mouth opened. No sound came out. I stood up. Tessa, you should leave. She blinked. Excuse me? Caleb, I continued, voice steady. Pack your things. You're done living here. He shot to his feet. You're kicking me out? Over this? I stared at him calmly. Over months of disrespect. Tonight was just the part you couldn't hide anymore. Tessa gathered her things, looking from him to me with sharp awareness. Caleb, she whispered, maybe we should go. He hesitated, just long enough to tell me everything. He didn't choose me. He chose her. They walked toward the door together, whispering urgently, and when the door clicked shut behind them, the silence that filled the house wasn't empty. It was clean. For the first time in months, the air felt like it belonged to me again. The morning after Caleb and Tessa walked out of my house, I half expected to find him on the couch, arms crossed, defensive, ready to argue, or maybe pacing, rehearsing one of those guilt-drenched speeches people give when they want consequences erased. But when I walked into the living room, the couch was empty. The air was painfully still. The silence felt clean. Then I saw the key, sitting on the kitchen counter, beside a folded note. I picked it up between two fingers. You're going to regret this. I was the best thing that ever happened to you. See, I laughed, loud enough that it echoed in the empty kitchen. If Caleb truly believed he was the best thing that had ever happened to me, then his self-awareness was even worse than his cooking skills. I crumpled the note and tossed it straight into the trash. The next week was a parade of pings. Texts, voicemails, blocked numbers, unknown numbers, social media messages from accounts I didn't recognize. At first, the messages were angry. You're controlling. You're insecure. I can't believe you kicked me out over nothing. Tessa says you're impossible. I tried so hard with you. Then they turned wounded. You overreacted. I miss you. Can we talk? I didn't mean any of it. Please just call me. Then came the bargaining. I'll change. I'll set boundaries with Tessa. I'll pay more bills. I'll cook more. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. Don't throw us away. And when none of that worked, when I didn't respond, not once, the messages flipped back into venom. You're cold. You always were. Nobody will put up with you. I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. Classic Darvo, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. I didn't answer a single one. His friends, the flying monkeys, came next. DMs from women I'd never met, all with the same tone. Caleb's devastated. You ruined him. He's staying on a friend's couch. He's crying every night. He loved you so much. How could you do this over something so small? I ignored the first few, blocked the second wave, and finally replied to one girl who seemed genuinely confused. I typed 4 simple lines. He told me to sleep on my couch so another woman could have my guest room. In the house I paid for. In the guest room I built myself. After months of disrespect, her typing bubble appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, oh, he left that part out. Wow, I'm sorry. A couple more friends reached out afterward just to apologize for the things they'd assumed. One even said, "Honestly, I always thought he took advantage of you. You deserve better." Funny how fast opinions change when the full truth comes out. Then came the message I didn't expect. Not from Caleb, from Tessa. It was short. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know things were that bad. Caleb made it sound different. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I wanted to respond, but because that single message confirmed what I'd suspected. Caleb lied to her too. She thought she was talking to a stable, grounded man. A man who respected the woman he lived with. A man who had boundaries. She didn't know he'd been slowly disrespecting me for months. And based on the tone of her message, she distanced herself from him too. I didn't reply, but for a moment I almost felt bad for her. Almost. 2 weeks after the breakup, the doorbell rang. I ignored it. It rang again and again and again. Finally, I opened the door, ready to tell off whoever was trying so hard to get my attention. It was Caleb. He looked awful. Dark circles under his eyes, hoodie wrinkled, hair unwashed. The confident, polished designer vibe was gone. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Karen," he said, voice cracking, "please, just let me talk." I hesitated, not because I wanted to let him in, but because there was a part of me, a tired human part, that wanted closure. "5 minutes," I said. He exhaled in relief and stepped inside. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. He wrung his hands. "I messed up. I know that. I was stupid and selfish and I took you for granted. I'm sorry. I am so, so sorry." I didn't speak. He pushed on. "I miss you. I miss us. I miss coming home to you. I hate being away. Please, Karen, give me another chance." "No," I said simply. He flinched like he'd been hit. "Just like that?" "Yes, just like that." "But I'll cut Tessa off," he blurted. "I'll block her. I'll stop seeing my friends. I'll pay more rent. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. Just tell me what to do." "You can start," I said calmly, "by accepting that this is over." His eyes filled. "You can't mean that. People fix worse things than this." "This isn't about one dinner," I said. "It's 8 months of disrespect. Dismantling my boundaries. Making my home feel like your stage. Ignoring everything I felt until it finally exploded." "I can change," he whispered. "You won't," I said, "not in a way that lasts." He stared at me, stunned. Finally he stood, slowly, like his bones hurt. "I love you," he said quietly. "No," I said, rising too. "You loved the comfort I gave you, the house, the security, the leniency, the patience, but you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have treated me like a guest in my own home." He looked like he wanted to argue, but couldn't. He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. "Goodbye, Karen." "Goodbye," I said. The door clicked shut behind him. This time it didn't hurt. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for months. It's been a month since then. My house is peaceful again. Quiet in the right ways, not the suffocating kind Caleb brought. My friends come over without walking on eggshells. We grill, laugh, watch games, talk loudly, without fear of passive-aggressive sighs from the bedroom. Last weekend, my friend Maya hugged me and said, "Good to have you back." I didn't realize how much of myself I'd shrunk just to keep the peace. Now I do. And I'm not shrinking anymore. I've even started dating again, slowly. Coffee dates, nothing serious. Just reminders that being treated with interest and respect shouldn't feel rare. Caleb texted one more time last week. I didn't open it. Some lessons don't need revisiting. Here's what I learned. Never let someone live with you unless they respect you deeply enough to treat your space like your heart. Gently, carefully. Not like something they're entitled to rearrange. And never ignore your boundaries. People test them not to see where they are, but to see if you'll enforce them. I enforce mine now, and my life is quieter, calmer, stronger for it.